Henry, you've told me how you met Vera. You haven't told me about the day that you actually got married. What was the wedding day like?
It was a Tuesday, and I took the day off from work. I should have been at work because we were very busy. What happened on the day we got married? We got married in a small synagogue in Willesden, and my parents were there. Vera's mother. Vera's father did not come. I don't think he was invited anyway. But Vera's mother had a brother, and he made our wedding. He was Uncle Izzy. He was a lovely man, and he paid for our wedding, which we had, I think, at the Hanover Suite in the West End. We had all our friends there, and I think we were about 150 or 200, about 150 people. In those days, I think the wedding cost £500. The wedding that we had there for £500, I think would cost 20,000 now. But we had no money, so we had a great day. We had a band, and we had our flat. And after the wedding, we went home to our flat. And I think we counted the presents to see if we got enough money to go on honeymoon with. We went to Austria on our honeymoon, and I wanted to introduce Vera to my aunt in Vienna. So we went to Vienna on honeymoon, so that's her first experience of Vienna. And I think from there we went to Felden, which was a lovely resort. We had a great time. I can't remember everything exactly, because you asked me. I would have to think 5 minutes what actually did happen. I remember we didn't have any money. I think I earned £15 a week at that time, and we paid £6 for our rent, and Vera was working, and we managed to go to the opera on our wages. We saw Maria Callas. I remember that. Yeah, we had a great time. We lived in a flat in England's Lane, around the corner where David and Denise live now, and we even had Denise when she was a baby. We had a two-room flat, 2 rooms and a kitchen, and we had Denise in that flat. And during the day, I think Denise was pushed into the bedroom, and at night Denise was pushed into the lounge. And this is how we managed for a year or 18 months or 2 years even, until we bought our first house. And we saw a pretty little house in Hatch End, which is 20 miles out of London. We asked Vera's father, I asked him if he would lend us £500 in case we need it. And he was very reluctant, but in the end he gave me a cheque for £500, which we never bothered to put into the bank. And that's how we started married life. Vera worked and I worked, and in those days you could live on £15 very easily.
What did Vera do? What was her job?
She was a secretary in a greeting card firm. They manufactured greeting cards, and she had no future there anyway. I didn't have much of a future either, but we got married, and I was setting stones in those days, and then we started manufacturing, and those were the good days. Those were the 1958. The 80s were the fantastic days, really, when we just couldn't produce enough. We just couldn't produce enough. We used to do exhibitions, jewelry exhibitions, and in the evening we asked the organisers not to turn the lights out because customers were still giving us orders.
Wow.
And now you don't see a customer all day at these exhibitions. They were the fantastic days, really.
So tell me a bit about the coming of the children. Let's start talking about, say, Denise, when she was born.
Well, Denise said Denise was born in a nursing home, Elizabeth Garrett maternity home, also in Belsize Park. So the whole thing revolved around Belsize Park. My parents lived, and I remember the night Denise was born because I was watching Panorama with Richard Dimbleby, and there was a phone call at 8 o'clock. They said, "Mr. Bass, your daughter has arrived." And I thought, oh my God, it was such an interesting panorama. Anyway, I just had to go across the road, and there was this gorgeous little baby. You know, she had blue eyes and blonde hair. She looked gorgeous. And I fell in love with her that day. It was marvelous. I think, I can't remember, yes, it was Denise, because it was a Monday, and we didn't expect her on the Monday. And I said to Vera, if anything happens, you walk up the road to the maternity home and give me a phone call in the office. And I think she walked there, but it's around the corner anyway. But it was the best day of my life, I think. Great day. David was born in Middlesex Hospital, and he had dark hair, and he wasn't as fat as Denise, and I don't think his skin fitted him anyway. It was all too big for him. But he was a lovely baby, and I think Vera had a fight with her father over the naming of David, because the father wanted a name for the baby, although he hasn't been in touch with Vera for years. And Vera said, "No, you're not having a say in the naming of this baby. It's my baby, and I'll do what I like." But he was going to be a traveller. He was going to be a traveller to see the whole world.
Right, he did that for sure.
Yeah.
What was he like as a boy, David?
He was a quiet little boy. He was a little bit like Benjamin. Yeah, Benjamin is the opposite to Samuel, and David was a quiet little boy, they used to fight a lot, the two of them. David used to hit Denise. I used to hit David when he hit Denise. So he always seemed an unhappy little boy. But we only had a few years with David, unfortunately, because he went to one of the nicest schools in London. He went to City of London School, and his name is on a plaque there in the school, David Bass. And then he took himself off to university, and he never came back again. When he came back from university, he lodged somewhere in Camden Town in a little attic, and then he started travelling, which he loved travelling, and he wanted to see the world.
I can't imagine David very shy, because he's a fairly gregarious person now.
No, well, once he went to school and once he went to university, he came out of his shell, you know. And then he met your daughter.
We know from there on, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And what about Denise? She's fairly headstrong and intelligent, it seems to me.
Yeah,
How would you describe
Denise,
her?
She was a lovely baby. She was jolly, and she was a plump little baby, and she looked very nice. She was happy. She did well at school. Denise is inverted character. You never know what she's thinking. I don't know what she's going to say when she sees this film. She's not very open. She will not confide in you. She won't tell you anything. And because of this, I had a letter from Denise with her handwriting. And there was a lady on the QE2 who examined handwriting, and she could tell, I don't know what you call these people, she could tell the person's character from the handwriting. And I said, would you like to have a look at this? This is Denise's handwriting. And she was 100%. She told me that Denise could be in the room, and if she's doing some work or something, she wouldn't even notice who comes into the room. And She played the piano, she played hockey, she was a swimmer, she did everything well. We went once on the cruise, on the Canberra. She won every race in the pool. All the boys were beaten. And I said, Denise, let the boys win sometimes. They will talk to you then. She never let anybody win anything. She was great at sports. She's great what she's doing.
Right. And she's now an accountant, is she? Or what does she actually do?
Well, she did her accountancy exam, and she was working for Price Waterhouse for many years. And I think she was a good tax manager there.
Right. Well, it's a top job. So
Yeah,
the kids have done very well for themselves, actually.
they're fantastic. When you think now, when we got married on £15 a week. Remember? Now all these boys and girls, they're on £100,000 each. It's fantastic, really, how times have changed.
So you don't see David all that much, but he does come to England once or twice a year. How do you feel about David living in Australia?
You know, we came to this country in 1938, and I have no brothers or sisters, and Vera has no brothers and sisters, and we really wanted to create a little family. Vera wanted 5 children, but I don't think we could have ever afforded to have 5 children and bring them up nicely and give them a good education. It's very expensive. So with David's departure, we've lost 50% of our family, really. When it first happened, I can't remember how long they've been married now. They've been married for 5-7 years?
More than that, 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Almost.
Okay. We were very upset. Vera was more upset than I was. But over the years, we've got used to the idea that David is not going to come back and that he's going to make his life in Australia. And I really don't miss David so much anymore. What I miss is Noah and Sophie, because Sophie is the only little girl in the family. And, you know, I've got a special feeling for little girls, and it's a shame that you are 20,000 miles away, because it would be nice to have a little granddaughter around in London. Especially with the other cousins, with the other boy, Denise's boys. It would be a nice little family. What can you do? David has made his choice. He wants to live there. Vera will never get over it. I've got to think about something else as well. But she is the mother, and she was more close to David than I was. And she feels it mostly.
These days, with the world as it is, it happened in my family too. I've got 2 sons.
Yeah.
One lives in Paris, the other one in New York.
Yes.
We don't see much of them either. So
Yeah.
it's something you might have wanted to have happen, but it's almost unavoidable these days in this very multinational world.
Some people may think, well, it doesn't matter. We can go to Australia and they can come here. But it's a great expense, number one. You've got to take 4 or 5 weeks off to do it. And now with having DVT once in one leg, the doctors have advised me not to fly anymore, these long distances. And that's the shame of it. We can't visit. I liked Australia. I think it's lovely there now. If I was a few years younger, or many years younger, I would go and live in Australia, I think.
Sure. Okay, now tell me a little bit about that sort of great big middle part of your life when, you know, there's 20 or so years when your kids were growing up in London, when they were still here. Mm-hmm. What were the highlights for you in all those times?
We had a great many friends, and it was one dinner party after another. One day at our house, next time at our doctor's house. Most of our friends were doctors and dentists, and we were busy with dinner parties. We went out to the opera. We went to the theatre. We try to enjoy life and also make a living. Vera didn't take business so serious as I do, but jewelry business is a serious business. Every day the gold price is a different price. You've got to recalculate. Otherwise you can lose a lot of money. We went on lovely holidays. We went on cruises. We took the children everywhere. We did not go out on a Saturday afternoon without taking the children. They went to all the plays in London. They went to all the theatres in London. We took them everywhere, really. Hopefully they will remember what we did.
Oh, well, they sure will. Right. Now, let's talk a bit about the grandchildren. Let's say Denise and David's children, Sam, Benjamin, Joe. So has it been a joy in your life having them around?
Well, this is the first time, as I say, apart from Denise and David, where there's been other children in the family. There aren't any children in the family. It was great to be able to make this family tree and all of a sudden put on 3 new names, Samuel, Ben and Joe, on this tree, and to say, hello, the family is growing. And they're a lovely bunch of boys. They're great, all 3 of them. Now that they're getting older, they're even greater because Sam plays the violin. Ben has given up his cello and he's on drums now. Little Joe, he's starting to play the piano. So eventually there'll be the Joseph Trio, I think, you know. But they're great fun, and we like taking them around. Sam, he's very good with my credit card already, and they're great fun. I enjoy it. Unfortunately, time is getting on, and we've got more years behind us than ahead.
Right, sure. How important has music been in your life, Henry?
Music is one of the important things in my life, and I don't know why, but from an early age, I liked the music of Johann Strauss. I was brought up in Vienna, where everything revolved around music. You went ice skating, you skated to Johann Strauss music. You ate a chocolate cake, you ate to Kallmann operettas. My mother sang. We had a wind-up gramophone, and there was always music in the house. And I was lucky enough, I was supposed to be born at a time when Vienna had these great singers, and Richard Tauber, Martha Eggert. These were the people who dominated our house. That's all they sang. Mother came home from the opera and she sang the arias the next day. And these opera singers, they made their life in Vienna. And it caught on, and I just carried on with it. I enjoy music. It's a shame I don't play an instrument. I did learn the accordion when I was small, but I don't know, I didn't try hard enough, I suppose.
But you enjoy music. It's a nice.
Well, you know, it's a very relaxing. Most of the jewelers who work close up, they play. They work to records, and I find working to music of Mozart. I can sing at the same time as I'm working. It's fantastic, especially figures, accountancy and figures with Mozart is fantastic.
How important is Vienna to you now? What does it mean to you to go back to Vienna?
I live in the past, Frank. I live in the past. England saved my life, but my heart is in Vienna, and that's true. We go back very often, and I don't know what I'm looking for. maybe I'm looking for the past. And we run around all the streets and the schools and go into the building where we used to live. I live in the past, really, that way. Yeah.
But Vienna is such a vastly different place now to what it was in your days before the war. Why do you keep returning to it?
Because it has these. Number one, it has all these memories of my childhood, and somehow your childhood draws you back. I still go and look at the house in Portsmouth, and I've gone back to look at the school in Northampton. So we go back to our roots in a way. Vienna, though, is something special. Vienna it was laid out in 1860 when they tore down the outer wall of the city. They tore down the wall and they built the Ringstrasse. And somehow they must have had these great architects who did these wonderful buildings. And the Ringstrasse has got the Hofburg, the opera, the Rathaus, the Burgtheater. It's got these beautiful, beautiful buildings. And there's only one other city, I think, which is like Paris, which has been laid out in the same fashion. And London has grown up bits and pieces from small alleys and small buildings. And London is basically brick built, whereas Vienna has got this beautiful stonework. It was mostly destroyed during the war, Vienna. The Americans bombed it, but they've rebuilt it, and it seems to have some sort of character. Buildings are important in Vienna. Buildings are not important in London for some reason. I don't know the name of one. Oh, there's a couple of architects who we know the name of in London, one who built the stock exchange. But in Vienna, there are important buildings. Everybody loves their buildings in Vienna.
Yes, it has a very special character.
Yes.
You don't see many children on the street, though, do you? It's
in Vienna?
Yeah. Maybe in the suburbs they are, but you don't see a lot of... It feels a bit like an aging city.
Yeah. Don't forget that in the last war, many soldiers got killed, and they didn't produce any families, and they didn't produce any children. All what was left after the war were many old ladies and many old men, and but there's lots of illegitimate children in Vienna. All the 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds are having babies now, and some are having babies by different fathers. And a lot of black children with white mothers. But it's not a nice population anyway. Vienna would be a beautiful city without the Austrians. And Austria would be a beautiful country without the Austrians. Because, you know, Salzburg and those mountains, it's beautiful. And unfortunately, the Austrians are miserable anti-Semites. My mother told me that the first time she went back to Bad Gastein after the war, somebody said to her, die Juden sind schon wieder da. Ich habe geglaubt, die sind alle verbrannt worden. Which translated means, the Jews are here again. I thought they were all burnt. And there was a time when David, our son-in-law, and we went in the 2nd district, and somebody called us Jews to our face. I remember. And that's why I wrote to Samuel, our grandson, last year when he was 12, and I wrote to him the difference between him being 12 in England and when I was 12 in Vienna in 1938. He's got a happy life in front of him. We hope.
Oh, he will have, sure. Yeah. What have been the defining moments of your life, do you think?
I'll think a minute. I think the fact that I got on with Ralph, my cousin in New York, he became a cousin, a friend, and a father. And probably I I needed him more than anybody else. And we talked for hours, and we shared our thoughts, or I shared my thoughts with him. And he was one of the most important people in my life, I think. Yeah.
Do you think in a way that he became like a substitute for your own father?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've had a number of substitutes. Fred Mazes was one. Armin was another. Ralph was another. I don't know. I really don't know. I tried to think why this has all happened. Why I was palmed around from one family to another. Thank goodness I was had a straight mind and didn't land up in prison like some of these other boys who fostered out and become delinquent.
Did you ever feel like an orphan, really?
Yes, in Northampton, where I didn't have any foster parents. I just lived. I was an evacuee, and I just lived with strange people who gave me a home because they got 15 shillings a week for each boy they took into their house. And I was one of those boys.
So you didn't have a very good time there in Northampton?
No.
All these things, do you think have left a mark on you somewhere? Or have changed your character, perhaps, or influenced it?
Oh, they must have left a mark on me somewhere, yeah. I wasn't born the way I am. I think the circumstances made me as I am. Whether it's these foster homes or friends, I really don't know. You have to ask my children one day what they think of me.
But war is unavoidable. It just happened, and circumstances happen. I mean, do you think that this was all meant to be, or do you think it was just an accident?
No, it wasn't meant to be, because a lot of other Jewish boys and girls stayed with their parents during the war. I mean, Vera stayed with her, I mean, she was only a baby, but she stayed with her mother all through the years. And I seem to have been fostered out all my life.
At the same time, if you'd stayed in Vienna and your parents had stayed in Vienna, you might not have been here today.
No.
Have you ever thought about that? I mean, what might have happened?
Yeah, and then we're coming back again to, I was one of the chosen people.
All right. Okay. So what's been the most satisfying part of your life so far?
Being able to buy a house, being able to have a nice life, having a nice wife. We've had arguments now for 45 years, but we're still together. And the things that I've achieved, I don't know what I've achieved, but I didn't work for nothing all these years. Must have achieved something.
Well, you've given two children quite a good upbringing and education.
Yes.
How important are the children to you then?
How important? Unfortunately, I'm not important to my children. As we've said before, David, I haven't had a letter from David for about 5 years. We get a phone call occasionally on a Saturday when he can find us 10 minutes, or we phone him. But I've never had a letter from him where he pours his heart out of what's bothering him. We don't know very much about his work. We don't know what he earns. We don't know if he can manage. We don't know how happy he is. Sometimes he seems like a stranger. Denise is busy with her commitments, with her husband, with her 3 children. Whenever I phone her up, she says, I'm busy now, I'll phone you back.
But all children do that, Henry.
Do they?
Yeah, yeah. For
Okay.
sure. You're not unique there.
She probably won't like me saying so, but this is how I feel. I love them both. They have no time for us, unfortunately.
Well, maybe they will make some time now. So are you still working as a jeweler at the moment, or is it all finished now? Have you retired?
The problem is we were going to sell the business 3 years ago, and it was a very, very nice business, made a lot of money, and then we had a very good name, Henry Bass Jewelry, and we wanted to sell and get out. And we had somebody who wanted to buy the business. He really wanted to buy the name only. And when it came to the crunch day, he did not want to buy the stones, the stock of stones that I had. And the contract stated that I wasn't allowed to manufacture anymore. And I really didn't know what to do with these stones. If I couldn't manufacture, I couldn't give the stones back to anybody. So I insisted that he buy the stones as well, and he just didn't have enough money. And so the whole thing fell through. We gave up our lease in Hatton Garden, and we moved in here. And we still have 3 agents on the road, and with big sample ranges. But in the last 18 months, the jewelry trade in this country has died. There's too much jewelry coming in from Thailand and the Far East, and the market is flooded with Far East goods. Also, we've had a recession whereby girls don't want jewelry anymore. The most important thing in their lives now is a car, a home, a refrigerator and a television. Jewelry is not wanted anymore, especially as an investment like it was in the old days. And when I think back in Vienna, jewelry was the most important thing in the life of a woman, because in those days, divorce, they didn't have the divorce laws which they have now. And when they got divorced, the woman was left with nothing, but she at least had the jewelry. And that was the main thing, that a woman came out of a marriage with her jewelry. And also when we came to England, they were able to sell their jewelry, and if they brought it with them, and they lived on it for a few months. Now jewelry is not important anymore, and which is a shame, because jewelry is a very artistic thing. It's a very desirable thing, I think, but it's not desirable anymore for the girls.
Well, the world's changed, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So you said you still have a few people travelling.
So we've still got travellers on the road. They're still selling, and we probably stop in about 18 months' time, because we have such a big stock that it takes time to sell off.
Right.
And we've been gradually reducing the ranges. In the end, they'll have nothing to sell.
Right. So in 18 months, you plan to be fully retired?
Yeah, well, we're virtually retired now, because business is so miserable that we have nothing very much to do. But the jewelry, as it used to be 10, 20 years ago, it's finished now, I think.
Now, there's an interesting side to your life here. You're also the honorary consul for Romania. Tell me how that all began and what's involved in that.
Well, I belong to the Johann Strauss Society of Great Britain, and they are in contact with all the other Johann Strauss societies all over the world, in Japan, in Australia, New Zealand, and Germany is one of the big ones, and there's one in Romania. And a few years ago, they asked me to bring back from Vienna a quantity of CDs which were produced in Romania. So I had the great pleasure of meeting the lady who is the president of the Johann Strauss Society in Romania, and her name is Josefina Rodico. or Rodrigo. And she's a fantastic lady. And she is also the wife of the Romanian ambassador in Vienna. And we met many times, and we had many pleasant lunches and dinners together. And last year, on the last day that we were in Vienna, the ambassador came to meet with us at our hotel, and he surprisingly presented me with the badges and said, "Henry, for all the services that you've done for us, we hereby make you an honorary consul for the Republic of Romania," which was very, very nice. Unfortunately, now they've had to go back to Romania. He's given up his post in Vienna, so it's very unlikely that we'll see him again for a few years. But it was a very nice experience.
Have you had to issue any visas and things like that?
No, not yet, no. If they want me to do any services in London for Romania, he will write to me or will ask me, and I will do it.
Okay. Interesting though.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've had some health issues over the last few years. Tell me about that, and you seem to be better now, but you went through a pretty rough spot.
I've had a few health problems. One was in New York, and the others probably arose from our trip to Australia. We're flying back from Australia. Got DVT in my right leg, which is not fun. And whilst in hospital for DVT, they also found I had polycythemia, which is a disease peculiar to people of the Jewish race. It is where the bone marrow produces more red cells than is necessary, and thereby your blood is prone to clotting. And that's my problem at the moment. The doctors are frightened of blood clotting, so I take aspirin, which thins the blood a little bit. But it's peculiar to have a disease which is peculiar to Jews. Never heard of that before. Anyway, I've got it.
Right. And you're managing it all right, you think?
Yeah, they keep it under control.
Good.
Mm.
Right. Henry, you've been married now to Vera for 48 years almost, getting on. How do you look back on those 48 years of marriage?
A sentence, a prison sentence, life sentence. Look, I think to be honest, I made one big mistake. And the mistake is of bringing Vera into the business and working together with Vera. I think that was a big mistake because we spent a great many hours together, and we also disagree on policy. And I think I was happier in business when I was on my own. Whatever we have achieved, we've achieved together. But working-wise, I don't think it is a good idea for husbands and wife to work together.
Right. Well, she's contributed quite a bit to your success, I would say.
Yeah.
Don't you recognize that?
You're still, we're on film. The only people who I know in Hatton Garden, husband and wife, who work together is one very nice man, and his wife works with him. She's constantly drinking whiskey, and they're constantly shouting at one another. The only thing is, the good part of working with your wife in jewelry is that you trust your wife 100%. There's no stealing. With staff, you don't know what disappeared and where it's gone to. But Vera would like to wear everything that we make. She wants to wear everything that we make. And what we don't make, She would like me to go out to a retail shop and buy, and I will not do this.
Maybe you have to sell the stock to Vera,
Yeah.
or give it to her.
Hmm.
If you can't sell it, just give her the
Yeah.
stock. All right. What's been the most difficult decision you've ever had to make in your life, do you think?
Selling the business. Vera did not want me to sell the business, and we had a little fight over that, or not a fight, we had arguments lasting a few months whether we should sell the business or not. Are we asking the right price for it? And these were the... Otherwise, we've never had to make any serious decisions in business or in life.
What about in other matters, of children or non-career matters? Have there been
Well,
any...
Vera always took care of their education, their schools. I took care of the holidays, but we've really been lucky. We didn't have to make any decisions, serious decisions in life. There's never been anything like that. We've been fortunate.
You've had a pretty charmed life then. Not many people can say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any regrets about anything you haven't done or things you've done in life? Anything you regret at all?
I think I regret not playing an instrument, musical instrument. I regret not having a better education. Otherwise, I regret that the family has been so has lived through all these years, and my life has been disrupted. Yes.
Right. Well, that was because of the war, of course. Nothing.
Well,
be done about
war and even before the war, my life was disrupted.
that. Right. Yeah. So, how would you like to be remembered? If other people later on talk about Henry Best, what would you like them to think about you?
I think in business, I like to be remembered in business about being absolutely straight with customers, and all my dealings since I've been manufacturing have been 100% honest. With the family, it's not how I want to be remembered, it's how they will remember me. And I hope they'll miss me one day.
I'm sure I will. Do you have any message or any advice for any of the children or grandchildren that you want to leave on this tape now?
Yes, the grandchildren grow up to be nice people, nice persons, be honest, and be straightforward, never do a dirty trick to anybody, and ask all the questions that you want to know while the family is still around. Because I want to ask a lot of questions, there's nobody left in life who I can ask. And I wish them great success and a very happy life. That's it.
Henry, if you could do it all again in another life, what would you change, or how would you do it again?
I think possibly, I would change my parents straight away. I would change 50% of my relatives. I would change the trade I'm in. It's been a very hard trade. And if I could change, I would change most of my customers, because I found that many have been dishonest. And it's not a nice working environment where you know your customers are dishonest. And unfortunately, we've had cause to find many customers out. And if I write a book about my business and my customers, it will be published after my death because it will all be libelous.
I don't have any further questions, but is there anything else that you want to mention that we haven't spoken about that you want to put on record at all?
I would have to look up my file, but I don't think there is anything. You've asked me everything which is relevant, and I hope you can make a little film out of this mixed up kid.
Okay, we will. I'll do my best. Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Henry, for the interview.
Thank you.